the Magus. The Magus is the essence of Western shamanism, basically. And the shamanism worldwide is about the idea of bringing together the elements, or working with the elements, fire, water, air, earth, to manifest, to heal, to cure. And the Magus definitely works with all of these energies. So today is the idea, we address the idea of, quote, drawing down these elemental powers, fire, water, and wind, and then whirling these energies together into manifestation on and as earth, or blueprints, even creating blueprints that can be manifested on earth. So this is the idea of moving into this quintessential empowerment of the individual self, the one. And what the Magus is doing is aligning internally and externally, internally aligning the universe of the self, and externally aligning with universal powers in order to come to a place of being able to wield the cosmic power. That's what the Magus is about, is wielding cosmic power. So when we're wielding cosmic power, we have to do it within sets of circumstances where that wielding will work. Like if you plant seeds in the snow, that's not going to work. So we also have to align with circumstances, or we need to create the circumstances. So that is all part of the Magus. The Magus is the universal shaman energy, the power of one. And the Magus becomes personified as the first of the great cosmic powers of the universe. The Magus is the centrated originator, unique, high personal activation. And this activation comes with great responsibility as well. The Magus is the unique and original one. The one who emerges out of the field as the creating force of the cosmos. And the field is all around and within the Magus. This is the pan-original, all-originating field that the Magus comes out of. And that's the zero power. That's the power of the Fool. So we are all, each of us, unique, the one. The one that we are and that we become is created out of all possibility. Then all possibility aligns and becomes unique possibility in a certain sense, in a packet. So each one of us is like a packet of walking universe with very unique potential, containing all the powers of the universe, but then also containing certain aspects that would be like charged aspects of the universe, so that we would be charged up in certain ways with certain ideas, and certain things would really impact us very deeply. Okay, so the Magus, that's part of the energy we're going into. And I wanted to mention also, in 2012, US Games, which is the publisher for Tarot of the Spirit, decided, we had nothing to do with this, US Games decided to create a new deck, because they had done the deck, the way they had created the deck was with the old technology, and the old technology was with these large printers, a tool and die situation with very large printers, where they would be adjusting the ink on the card, but they would print the cards 20 on a sheet. So they would adjust the red, yellow, blue, black, and white, basically, for these 20 cards. And they try to get the best representation that they could get for 20 cards on a sheet. But what happened was that the inks kind of got muddied in that process. So then when the new technology came about, where with these printers where you could actually print out the cards individually, that what they did is they went back and they rescanned with very fine art scanners the original paintings. And then, so the new decks now, since 2012, are printed out as from the scans of the original paintings. So they're actually the correct colors. Okay, but the reason I mentioned that with the Magus is because when we received it, the good thing was they put the Tree of Life overlay in the box too, which was not there before. So that was the really good thing about it, and that the colors are correct, and they're Kabbalistically correct because all the colors are there for a purpose. But the part that I was upset about was we had no say over this, and we had no say over the box either. Okay, so on the box of the new deck is a picture of the Magus, whereas before, one side of the box was the Earth Sister, who I was very attached to because that's also the picture on the cover of the book. And then on the other side of the box was the Fool. So it was Earth Sister and Fool. That was the original deck. And it was like that for 20 years. So this was their 20-year edition of Tarot of the Spirit. Well, the new box, as of 2012, has the Magus on one side, and on the other side, it has the Eight of Fire, the lightning path. Okay, I'm getting chills now myself. The reason I'm getting chills telling this story is because in 2012, whoever was behind this, and I don't know who it was, maybe the universe was behind this, or the guides, took this deck, the Tarot of the Spirit, from the Fool into the Magus. So, where we were perhaps bumbling uncertainly and not quite knowing where we were going, but we also had the Earth Sister, that was great, the exaltation of the feminine and all that kind of stuff. Very beautiful. All of a sudden, we are inside the power of the Magus. And the power of that card, the Eight of Fire, the lightning path. That card shows the whole Tree of Life pattern. If you see the entire thing, and it is illuminated at one time. So it shows how the whole thing fits together. And I didn't even get that myself, because first I had to get over the idea that they had changed the box, which I wasn't happy about, to the Magus. So when I got it though, and I realized, whoa, now we claim our power. 20 years we have been moving along, and it's amazing, that this deck has been in print so long. So 20 years we've been moving along, and suddenly we are being moved into the complete, I'll say clamation, not reclamation, but I'll say like clamation of our power. And now the insignia, which has always been the insignia, has always been the Fool, which is the insignia of the Tarot in general, suddenly moves to the Magus. Empowerment. So now we're going to claim our power. Yeah. Isn't that an interesting tale? Okay, so on the Tree of Life, the Magus is path 12, which moves between the number 1 sphere and the number 3 sphere. So it's at the top of the Tree of Life. Number 1 is connected directly to the source of all that is. The 4 ones, which connect directly, those are the 4 ones, are fire, water, air, and earth, which are the elements of which everything in the universe is created. That's the idea. Okay, so it connects between that space, number 1, and the space of 3, which is the power of creation. So the 3s, all the 3s of fire, water, wind, and earth, those are all some kind of birth cards, some kind of creation cards where we're making something happen and suddenly things are expanding exponentially. The 3 is also the place where the mother or the mothers live and hang out around. So the 3 is a place of gestation and birth and birthing. So it's conception, birthing, and creating the new. So that's the path where the Magus lives, is between the 1 and the 3. And interestingly, these paths, the Magus is this path 12, these paths actually go both ways. So the Magus is coming down from the 1 into the 3, but it can also be moving as born out of the 3 back into the 1. So, and this also is representative of the relationship between the Fool and the Magus, because the Fool, which is path 11, and the Magus is path 12, the Fool is between the 1 and the 2 at the top of the tree of life. And the Fool represents this energy that's not yet directed. It is the 0 energy. It's the energy of the whole field of the universe beginning to emerge. And then it is said that what happens is the Fool goes on the Fool's journey to find out who he, she is. And the first step on that journey is into the number 1 energy of the Magus. And so that's where the Fool becomes, the Fool's 0, all possibility, and the Fool stepping into the Magus is in a sense trying on the mask of the Magus or the energy of the Magus, and that is what it feels like to become a 1. Like clear, you are the 1. You are the 1. Okay, and then if you can follow this part of it, what happens is it actually becomes a continual process, if you look at it on another level, of the 0 being the entire circle of the universe or the cosmos, and then growing out of the middle of that comes the 1, focusing on the 1. A 1 grows up out of all the possibility in the universe. The 1 grows up, becomes, then the 1 disappears back into the whole pan-original field. So in a sense, our lives are just going back and forth between the 0, the 1, the 0, the 1, the 0, the 1. It's like this binary system. Universe into a specific being, back into universe. Universe into a specific being, back into universe. And we see this process happening all around us in everything that exists in this universe. And the amazing thing about this universe is, our universe is, it specializes in originality. And that is an amazing thing. No 2 people ever the same in all of time. Not the same DNA, not the same, maybe similar, but not the same. Not even twins. Nothing is the same. And like you look at a field of poppies, and it looks like a field of poppies, but when you look close, no 2 plants are the same. They're original. Each one, each tree. You could have a forest all of pine trees, but each tree is different. And that's the Magus energy. And what I like to think about that is that why does this universe specialize in originality? And the way I look at it is, what our universe is doing is it's experimenting with its own self and the power of its own imagination. It's on the adventure of its own becoming through original beings. The production of original beings. And then those original beings who contain the universe are continually creating the universe and then go back into the universe. Does that make sense? Like you come out of the universe as this Magus, you create something, then you go back into the universe. Then you come back out again, or whatever, maybe something recombined. So what is happening here is that we are like bounded packets of universe. That's the Magus. We're like a bounded packet of universe, and we're traveling in and out. Negative space into positive space into negative space. Negative space is the space between everything. And then the positive space is the thing itself, and then back into the negative space. So it just keeps going like this. And we hold all this potential within us as positive space or positive being. We hold all the potential within us of the negative space. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, so in Hebrew, the Hebrew name that goes with this card is called Beth, B-E-T-H. And Beit means house or temple. So it's like a set apart space, a set apart being on the path of becoming. So it means house. Beit means house, temple, community, gathering place. And it could be a physical body, it could be a social institution, or a family, or a culture, or a society, or a planet, or a galaxy, or even the entire universe. But the idea is, where is the boundary? Where are you setting the boundary? Like even our whole universe could be like a Magus, if you imagine that we live in a gigantic multiverse, but each of us as individuals become like the Magus. And so as the fools, I'm going to make it just really simple. As the fool, what we're doing is we're trying on the mask of the Magus. So we're seeing, how does it feel to be inside the power of one, set apart in the universe, unique, a creative being. And there's a cat, which, if anybody heard the meow, that's good luck. All right. Okay, so there we are, set apart. So Beit is the temple, becomes the temple of our being, the dwelling place of spirit, which exists all around us, within the house of self and cosmos. So as the Magus, this house, this temple of our body is our dwelling place. And we are consciously creating the universe from within this dwelling place of our own being, right? We can, if we're aware, we can consciously create the universe. This power of one entails an awakening, the universe awakening to its own self. Because this is the universe created. So we are the universe waking up to the fact of its own existence. Therefore, this card, the Magus, is the central card that would relate to the astonishing, awesome awakening of I am. I am. I am. I am. I am living universe containing all the powers of the universe. I'm living universe here on earth in this body. And also, I am from the stars. I am from the stars. And knowing that is because we know that because we are created of all the elements that were born out of our sun. So out of visionary cosmology, when we come into that place, we can awaken into this profound wonder that changes everything about who we thought we were. It helps us to transcend whatever victimization we might have experienced, no matter where we are, no matter what is happening, no matter what we are doing. Okay, and then we can enter into the Stargate awakening. I call it the Stargate awakening of who we really are. So this is out of my book, Visionary Cosmology, and it's the Stargate awakening of the I amness of the Magus. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. And it follows the powers, the 10 powers, and Magus is power number 1, especially. Okay, here's the Stargate awakening. 0, which corresponds to the Fool. I am the spiritual and material star field of universal life, right? 1, I am the body of the cosmos in every moment, spinning into form and realization. And then the rest of them, then the Magus contains all the rest of the powers. 2, I am an electrified force field inspired to keep the universe in motion. 3, I am a center of creation and a zone of cosmological emergence. 4, I am a sanctuary of nurturance. 5, I am the power of dissolution and dispersion, the change that heralds the new. 6, I am integral to the expansive interrelations of the cosmological community. 7, I am the cosmological adventure and the transmutation of imagination. 8, I am the record of cosmic experience, holding, integrating, and creating new code. 9. I am reflective universe, witnessing and remembering the possibilities of its course. 10. I am radiant cosmos, expressing itself as a child risen from sun. 11. I am the Stargate awakening, the portal and the passage into new dimensions of becoming. We become the portal for the universe into new dimensions and ways of being. See, I'm jumping right into the real core and the real power and the electrified way of understanding the true potential of what this Magus energy is. I am, thou art. I am, you are, we are, and they are. Do you see? You are with me and I am with you. We are together. And we are the secret of the 11th power, which relates back. It's like we can move through portals that we can't even imagine if we can awaken to who we really are. We are synergistic mind, awakening in the infinite field of the new era. You are living universe. The powers of creation are in and with you now. Okay. I am unique. I am part of the living universe. I am centrated universe. And I want to read you a couple of other brief passages out of visionary cosmology that reflect this energy. The Magus is related to the idea that our universe specializes in originality. And this is related to the cosmological power number 1 called Centration. The universe creates original beings and then centers on the original being to try to bring that original being alive and into the fullness of itself. So we were talking about propagating plants, for example. Okay, so theoretically, you can propagate a jade plant by just sticking it in the ground. You know, you don't even have to do anything, but the conditions have to be right. You can't stick it in frozen ground. It's not going to work. You know, it has to be, the temperature has to be right. The water has to be right. Everything has to be right. And then the thing can really go. So the universe is constantly creating these zones where you can, where we can wield the energies and make them happen. But it has to be the right kind of zone. So here's part of the cosmological power of centration. So it states that, so this goes back to the whole universe, that number 1, even while the universe is expanding, the whole field of space is simultaneously gathering and assembling and concentrating, even as it centers around zillions of units of creative origination. So like where you stick that jade plant in the ground, if you stick it in under right circumstances, it becomes a unit of creative origination, because it can then go forward and keep propagating and propagating and propagating if it's in the right place at the right time. Okay, and then secondly, each sphere of centrated creative origination thrives within, or actually constitutes, the exact center of the universe. And the reason that that is true is because science has now proven that the universe is expanding in such a way that every zone in the universe can be seen as being at the exact center, because it's expanding not outward from a central point, but it's expanding uniformly in every single direction all at once. So it's like if you had a balloon and you make a dot on a balloon and you're just blowing it up, but it's expanding everywhere all around the balloon at the same rate. So it's expanding outward, but at the same time there's focus that's going on those each point in the universe so that it can thrive. Not every point does thrive, but the ones that are in the zone where things work are thriving. Okay, and then each centrating unit, that means that originating unit is unique in our entire universe. including every single atom is unique. It's amazing. Every atom is unique. We did not know that in the past, but now we know because of quantum physics that inside each atom is an entire unique universe where quanta, which are like the tiny parts inside an atom, are coming into being all the time and disappearing out of being inside atoms. So the deeper we can look, the more we can see, and the same is true with looking outward into the universe. The better our equipment is, the more we can see the uniqueness and how large it is, and how all these centers of unique experience. And then lastly, each centrated unit becomes a new center point or concentrated sphere or unit of origination, right? So that's all part of it. So we are original, and then we are originating, and we are unique in that process. And we have the power of participating with the universe around us, the enveloping universe, to co-create realities. Right? Can you see? Are you with me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay. So each centrated unit in the universe becomes the one. It's like the first principle. It's the one. Each creative creation in our universe becomes a new starting point. It's a new one. The one, which is an original being, and this is also out of visionary cosmology, the one, which is an original being, becomes the center of a new sphere. So, like, the one is the center of a whole sphere of activity. And this is how we are in our lives. In this way, our universe focuses intense energy around and on each of its individual children, if you will. And this, too, is an aspect of the principle of centration. So the universe centrates and focuses around and within universes within universes within universes. Each individual or unit, whether it's a star or a frog or a human, is its own creative field with its own individual marking, its own talents and abilities, and even its own behavioral traits or personality. So, okay, and I'll just throw in parenthetically that I have visitors here at the house who are ravens. Okay, and at first I thought ravens are known for shape-shifting, and I thought, wow, that raven changes a lot its looks. And I finally figured out it wasn't one raven, but it was a few. But they had similar, they're looking for food, right? But they had similar behaviors, and I thought it was all one bird. But now that I'm looking really close, I see that each one is extremely unique with a very extreme personality. Ravens have their own personality, and they will call to me with different voices, and they will they have different body language to get my attention. And one of them, now I know one I taught to say love you, or he taught me, I'm not sure which, but I say love you, and then it's that bird will say back to me love you, and the rest of them don't. They do something different. And they're trying to teach me their language. We think we're smart because maybe we can teach them to communicate a couple of words that are like what we call English, but they've got huge, vast languages, and they try to teach us, and we're too dumb to get it, what they're trying to say. Okay, stop that, Pamela, and get back to this. Okay, go back to us as original beings, original you. Okay, here is you right now. Here's state-of-the-art you. It took 13.73 billion years of universal artistry for our universe, creating, combining, and recombining its elements to evolve into you. Your state-of-the-art universe, composed of millions of atoms of oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. You are the very essence of the centrated state-of-the-art universe itself. Now, here's a weird thing. Since each of your atoms is predominantly composed of space. Each atom is 99.9% space and 0.1% matter. You are predominantly made of the all-originating, pan-original field, space, which is the full, concentrated into a creative unit. You are the very essence of universe itself. You are universe walking. Okay, my question about that, by the way, another parenthetical observation. If we're made of space, which we are, why can't we walk through walls? We should be able to. So we may not be thinking big enough. Anyway, what we're doing right here is we're kind of throwing off the top of how we know ourselves. And we're knowing ourselves in a different way. You were born into and out of the universe. You are a centrated being. You are a center of origin. You are an originating center of universe evolving. Okay, so what the attempt is here, and this is how I've evolved in understanding the Magus, because 30 years ago, I wouldn't have been talking this way. And I don't even expect people to understand what I'm saying right now. I'm hoping that you can understand, and follow, because I would have said, oh yeah, the Magus is where we step into our power. It's the power of one, and the Fool tries on being in a place of manifestation. But now the way I understand it is yes, but also you contain all the powers of the universe, and you are a much more powerful manifester than our culture has allowed. So that means we have to transcend aspects of our culture that are limiting who we think we are. So we're starting at the point of redefining ourselves, absolutely, and the meaning of being alive, especially in relationship to the universe. Okay, so this entails awakening into originality, our originality, original being. This is the idea of awakening consciousness. The realization, what some have called the realization of selfhood. But the question is, who's your true self? Of course, in Hinduism, from long ago, they, in the Upanishads, at whose behest do the ears hear? At whose behest do the eyes see? And even back then, say 1000 BC or whatever, they said it's at whose behest? At Brahman's behest. And Brahman was the whole of the universe coming through you. So they were already talking about it in Hinduism a long time ago. But in Western culture, this is not the way we have talked about it. Okay, so here's the Magus as the shaman throwing off the bounds of Western culture and moving into a different definition of the self. The large self, that would be self with a capital S, is connected with the whole of the universe, the whole field of the universe. And the small self, which is with a small s, becomes a creative unit which also has a personality and is going to be moving in certain directions, but both can exist together as one. Usually we see ourselves only as a small self. We don't see ourselves as a big self connected with the whole of the universe, as creative power in the universe. We just see ourselves dealing with our culture, our work, our job, and what we have to do. Okay, we can have all these levels of awakening, and I hope today is another level of awakening throughout our lives. Birth might be an awakening, or our babyhood, or we might realize a moment we awakened into a new level of knowing ourselves. And I was thinking about, I wanted to ask you if you had some memories, but as I was thinking about this, I realized I had a couple of memories that were a huge awakening. One when I was probably about 18 months old or something like that, or maybe a little younger, when I was like at one with the grass and the flowers, and all this. And so I saw this cute little fuzzy bee on a clover, and I just reached down and took it in my hand, a bumblebee, right? And it stung me on my palm, and I felt so betrayed. Like, really? I just thought you were cute, and it really hurt. It was like an electric, ooh, being stung by a bee, right? But it was a level of awakening into selfhood. Like, whoa, me and the bee, you know. Actually, I just remembered one of the things that I did after that. Ooh, this is a weird memory. Later on, when I was like 4, I was an expert at catching bees in jars. And I just realized, you think you can sting me like that? I could just go up to a bush and catch a bee in a jar put the top down and have the bee in a jar. Okay, what kind of reaction is that? That's a very human reaction. Okay, but those are the kinds of things we need to learn also to overcome. But levels of awakening to ourselves, like to being in a separate being, because we are on this planet. We have levels of awakening into our separateness. But hopefully what we would want to do is we would want to empower people in their separateness. Empower the children, to be living packets of universe and to be doing the thing that only they can do, in terms of their awakening and who they're awakening to. I had levels of awakening into this idea of being a writer, and that came over time. Like, I had written 4 books or published 4 books or something before it even crossed my mind that I was a writer. So in terms of levels of awakening, and I can remember one colleague I had, Marcia Falk, she wrote a new translation of the Song of Songs, but she wanted to do it for a doctoral degree and at Berkeley, and she said, I believe the Song of Songs in the Bible is mistranslated, and I want to go try to find old, really old versions of the Bible, and I want to see how it was originally translated, and I want to find the oldest ones I can find, because I don't believe that it's right. She just had a feeling about it. And they told her, well, that's not, the Song of Songs is really short. It's a short, tiny little book. It's really only a few pages. And that's not enough to get a doctoral degree. It's not enough. And, and she said, but that's the only thing I want to do. It's the only thing. She was like so called. It's the only thing I want to do. And eventually they said, well, okay, you just go ahead and do that, and see ya. Like, they kicked her out. But she couldn't get out of her head. And so she started a search, and she started working with all these experts in the world, and she finally found the oldest existing Song of Songs in Leningrad, someplace in Leningrad, and found indeed that the translation was wrong. It's much different, much bawdier, that it was probably written by a woman, and it's a completely different take on what the Song of Songs turned out to be. It got all kind of dumbed down, or whatever. So she actually published that. It was published by Harper at some point, the work that she did. And so she took that book that was published, and she walked back into the department, and she said, well, here it is. And they said, whoa, this is awesome. So they gave her her doctorate based on the book. But what she told me, I remember that really moved me, and it was like a point of awakening. So we were in this same group together at Stanford, this scholar group. Anyway, she says to me, Marcia said, here's the thing that I have learned. She said, do the thing that only you can do. And don't let the people try to control you. Do what you know is your calling, because there's a reason for it. We don't know what it is, but there's a reason for it. And that thing that she did overturned a lot of aspects of the theological community and their thinking, just by that thing she did. So this awakening has to do with imagination, our own imagination, becoming aware of its own existence, and acting then on the vision that comes through us. But there are some things that can keep us from acting on the vision, because one of the things is, it takes a lot of privilege to allow yourself to imagine, a sense of privilege, entitlement, to allow yourself to imagine something and then to go ahead and act on it. And I wanted to tell you another little story that was a really interesting story for me. So there was a kid at the high school. This is when I was working with youth, and he was an artist. Well, okay, he was not labeled as an artist, but he liked to draw. So he was sitting in a class, I think it was an English class, and he happened to be in a gang, and he happened to be sitting in the English class drawing a picture of the gang leader who was in the English class instead of doing what he was supposed to be doing in English. So one of the kids saw what he was doing and grabbed it off his desk, the picture. And he was worried about that because he didn't know what was going to happen. He couldn't get it back. Okay, next thing that happened, he was walking across the parking lot or something like that, and he saw the gang leader flanked by other guys in the gang, and they were walking toward him. And they stopped him, and they said, and the gang leader in the middle pulls out of his back pocket a folded up piece of paper, unfolds it, holds it in his face, and says, "Did you draw this man?" So the kid thought he was going to get beat up, So I'm not going to tell you why, but in my interpretation, it's kind of like stealing the soul of this other person or something like that. Okay, I don't know why. Okay, but first of all, it didn't fit with the culture. It didn't fit with the gang. This guy's drawing a picture. It's like, we don't do that. Okay, but so he shoves it in his face. "Did you draw this man?" And Carlos says, of course, "Yeah." And then the gang leader says, "That's good, man. You should take lessons." And he's like, whoa. Because his parents didn't want him to draw. It wasn't part of the culture. It wasn't part of the world. They didn't want him to draw. He was transcending a lot of social barriers just by doing this, right? Okay, so they said, why don't you talk to the art teacher? Finally, the art teacher at the school found him and said, "Hey, why don't you come and sit on the art class?" And he said, "Oh, okay." But so he went and tried to sit on the art class, but it didn't work because there were too many cultural barriers. Mm-hmm. So my husband actually was an artist and knew the art teacher. So the art teacher said, "Why don't you go apprentice with this guy?" And he said, "Okay, good." So we had a gallery and we had a store, and that's where my husband had his art studio. So Carlos came over there and apprenticed with him, and he was helping him to learn how to draw. So Carlos, age 17, says to me one day, he said, "Do you want to know the most important thing I have learned in my life?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "I mean it. This is the most important thing I've learned in my life." "Well, yeah, of course." And he says to me, "If you can imagine it, you have a right to draw it. If you can imagine it, you have a right to draw it." So he had to overcome this whole idea that he did not have a right to pursue the thing that was calling him. And he had to overcome it on many levels. The right to his own talents, the right not to be stuck in a particular role, the right to be able to wield your talents. So, because it takes a lot to step into the path of the Magus, a lot of overcoming cultural pressures. So I have, one of the things that when I came into the study of Tarot, I came in as a sociologist and I had all this sociology background. And then I started to see how this could work by understanding some basic sociology. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of basic sociology background so you can see a little bit how things come to be as they are and why it's hard for us to transcend them. Okay, so first of all, we live within things that are called sociologically zones of reality. And these zones of reality are structured by our our routines that we do. They're like these enclaves, and time is involved in these zones of reality. And these zones of reality are basically the here and now of our daily world. And they seem shared by others. They seem normal, and they seem self-evident. And basically, they are held together by our routines of everyday life, this common reality. And these zones of reality are also zones of lucidity. And what that means is they become illuminated against this kind of dark backdrop. So like when you're at work or something, at work, whatever that means, you're in your workplace, let's say. So you go in there and that becomes an illuminated zone of reality, and everything else just drops into a dark background, right? But it is a reality enclave, and everybody seems to know what's going on there. Everybody gets it, and everybody is in their certain roles and routines, roles, rituals, and routines. And anything that happens, let's say in that place, or it could be your home or anything, any place, anything that happens in that place that is routine is unproblematic. As long as it goes along with the routine, there's no problem. Okay, so within these zones, we enter into something that we could call reality enclaves. And inside these reality enclaves, we take on all these different roles that we play, and we do that role in that reality enclave. And then we also, that role has contained within it like a sub-universe of meaning that we all understand. And then like we can label people there, oh, this person's a dreamer, this person's a physicist, this person's an artist. And those are all roles within these zones of reality. Or this person's a mystic. Then we start to perceive others as types. Oh, this person is a whatever. And then we act accordingly. So then our social structure that we live within turns out to be the sum total of typifications, where we generalize and turn people into types, and we create these zones of reality. The typifications are then move into recurrent patterns of interaction, right? Based on types and expectations. And this is all related to what the predecessors have done and then what the successors are going to do. Okay, and then our language becomes like a repository of meaning in these places. Our language and our symbols. So we are actually moving in a symbolic reality that we are being taught, and then we are reproducing. So then things get associated with our name, let's say, like John Smith. Okay, John Smith is this, let's call John Smith a centrated packet of universe, right? But John Smith has been associated with certain roles and ways of behaving ever since he was born. So, whatever John Smith is going to do, etc., has a socially predictable answer to it, like who this John Smith is going to be. And the question of identity doesn't even arise usually for us. We're going along with it without realizing that we are participating in this whole thing, that we are actually reproducing it and creating it. So sometimes, as some, like say, writers or artists learn, if they change their name, get a new name, this is just an example, but you get a new name, like a pseudonym or a spirit name or something like that, you're suddenly free. It can set you into a whole new layer of your own identity and your reality that you never even thought about. Okay, but what happens is these typified interactions like this, typecasting and all this, gets solidified into institutions. That's the next level of it. So we produce ourselves, and this production of ourselves and who we are within these institutions becomes a social enterprise. We're living inside the social enterprise where the way we are is actually a production. I don't want to say it doesn't have to be that way. You see what I mean? We could produce ourselves in any way we want, but we're going along with these programs, and we are then producing what is called the social order. So the social order is actually a product of human activity and the repetition of roles, rules, and routines. So we maintain and transmit this social order through patterns, routines, habitualized action, and reciprocal typifications, where everybody says, oh yeah, this is the way it is. This is the way it's done. This is the way we do it. So it's got a certain historicity, historical connections associated with it, and also social controls and sanctions get associated with it. So like if you move outside the bounds, something bad could happen to you. So society is a human product, and it also becomes an objective reality that we're moving in. But it is a social product, and we are socialized into it. And this institutional world, in order to stay intact, requires some kind of legitimacy. Like we have to give it the legitimacy, otherwise it won't stay intact. We have to say, oh yeah, you're legitimate. This whatever's going on here is a legitimate thing. Because if the minute we say, wait, this is not legitimate, it can all fall apart. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the knowledge of what is legitimate, or what we think is legitimate, programs our body of knowledge, and then that body of knowledge is transmitted. So roles become a major part of passing on the legitimacy, and basically it can create like what we value. Okay, so the weirdest part of this, I mean, I know it all sounds weird, but the weirdest part of all of it is that in fact reality is socially constructed and maintained, the reality that we live within, and it is constructed and maintained through actions and mythical structures that hold it into place. And therefore, and this is the weird part, we are paradoxically capable of producing a reality that denies our very soul. And we participate in that, a reality that hurts us. So sometimes it also splits us. So we'll have a public self and a private self, like where we do certain things publicly and then certain things privately. And our private life is like our own business. And in our private life, we may enter into a, quote, a deviant reality, where we're not going along with all the, social programs and stuff. So we can emigrate into different ways of knowing. And in sociology, they call that reality slipping. Okay, so if you, so you maintain a certain reality at work, then you come home and you do something else. But if you get really tired of it, your deviant reality may slip out at work. Like, oops, I forgot and brought a pack of tarot cards to work. Like, oops, oh, but it's maybe not an entire oops. Maybe you're just like, whatever. Okay, but the other thing that can happen here is, so you do bring a packet. Well, I'll make up a story. So you bring a pack of tarot cards to work. And this actually, I know that this has happened in a number of corporations around the Bay Area. This literal thing. Somebody gets out their pack of cards and sticks it on their desk and it's sitting there. People come through and they say, what's that? That's a pack of tarot cards. Really? Do you do tarot readings? And then all of a sudden, everybody's dropping by. Tarot readings are happening. All of a sudden, the future of the hey, what should we do about our next go live? What should be some of the factors that we should include in that? It's a game, but it starts changing reality, right? This is just one example. It could be anything, but it starts changing reality. But here is the interesting thing that can happen. If we do reality slip enough and start coming out with alternative realities or deviant realities, and there are enough people, suddenly we have a competing group of experts. This is what social change is about, right? So now you say, all right, who's the legitimizing agency for this and this and this? Who's overseeing? Who's the overseeing agency? Okay, guess what? we're going to create another agency to oversee this. And this is possible. This is how social change works. So you have these groups of experts beginning to appear. You can become a group of experts by passing legislation, and people are doing it all the time. They will go propose I've been involved in legislation myself to get healthcare changed, and it's incredible how you can actually do that, like create a different group. So we can produce rival categories of experts. This is the power to produce reality. And we do it through wielding symbols. Like we put together new forms of language as symbols, new ideas, new logos, new things that people connect with. That starts to move reality completely. And when I make a huge shift in my conception of myself, like this visionary cosmology, that is a reality shift. That's into a different way of knowing ourselves. When I make a big shift like that inside my own self, it's called an alternation. I move from one universe to another within myself. And it's then it requires me to become re-socialized for myself. I have to re-socialize myself. I'm going to attune to different groups of experts. Now I'm going to start tuning into cosmologists or something like that and look at the way this universe is formed. I'm not going to look at what I'm being told right now, how to sit down and behave in first grade. I'm going to look at something else. Yes?
Is alternation a sociological term? I mean, is
it's
that what
used in sociology.
sociology?
Yeah, this is sociology. I won't even call it 101 because it's pretty advanced. But this is advanced. This is graduate level stuff, but I did actually teach this stuff in Intro to Sociology. Because once you get it, it's like you can never think the same way again. You just can't. Okay, so, but me having a breakthrough, like I am a packet of walking universe, changes everything. Okay, so that when everything changes like that, it's like a conversion experience. But in sociology, they call it biographical rupture. Your biography ruptures. You can't be the same again. You're never going to be the same. So that means everything's going to shift, and you can't go back into that same setting again, being the same person in the same role. You see how that works? Because you say, I realize now that my soul has been denied. And now I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go, I'm going to fight for the whales. I don't know. I'm going to clean up the plastic in the ocean, I'm going to do something different because I am a different person now. Okay, so our identity is going to be modified by by social relationships. So we're probably going to change our affinities, and our affiliation groups and stuff like that when we have these huge breakthroughs that we have, because now we're going to become a different kind of person. And I believe that this is possible for us to do also on a much larger level. Some people talk about critical mass, I don't know. Okay, so I want to talk about another level. Okay, so I was talking about Carlos, the kid who was kept from drawing by culture. Okay, and he said if you can imagine it, you have a right to draw it. So he was actually claiming his right, and he was going through an alternation and a restructuring of his own personality and what he thought about himself and his role and for the future. He never would have used the term artist, but after that he was using the term artist. Like, I'm an artist, I'm an artist. I know how to draw. I am an artist and I have a right to be an artist. Okay, but in order to claim our freedom, because that entails claiming our freedom, right? So in order to claim our freedom, we have to believe that the universe is changeable and that we are free to change it. Okay, so that brings up the law of freedom. And there are 4 aspects to the law of freedom. One is that we have to believe that the law of life is a law of freedom. I mean, we have to be able to affirm, I am free. And this would apply to any setting, because even if we were incarcerated, we would have to be able to say inside ourselves, I am free. So claiming a freedom within us. That's number 1. Number 2 to affirm that images of limitation have no power over me. Images of limitation have no power over me. And then thirdly, we have to affirm the positive state of our mental health, because it's real easy for us to say to ourselves, I must be crazy to think this way. Okay, we have to be able to say to ourselves, you know what? I am mentally healthy, and I see that change is possible here, and I'm going to step into that right now. And I am extremely mentally healthy, and I am seeing clearly, right? Okay, and the fourth part of it is it's basically a therefore. Therefore, I refuse to engage in things that ought not be. I refuse to engage in things that ought not be. My favorite example of that, which I talked about a lot, is Rosa Parks. Here she is, she's tired. This is so clear. She's tired. She's on the bus, she's sitting in a seat, and somebody comes up to her basically, and she's supposed to get up and out of the seat because it's not her place to sit in that seat, right? She is supposed to be in the back of the bus. And so she says, okay, I'm not getting up. Okay, so she's saying, okay, this ends here with me now. I'm tired, I'm not moving. And in that action, she said, this is an image of a limitation. It's not real. It's just an image that I am limited. What happens if I sit here? What happens if I sit here, right? So she just sat there, and she affirmed that she was mentally healthy. I'm mentally healthy. She had to do that. I'm not crazy, and I'm not moving. And I refuse to engage in things that ought not be. Okay? I'm not moving. Okay, what happened was she got arrested. Okay, fine. She got arrested because it was against the law for her not to move. So that was the small law. But the word got out, hey, you know what? We don't have to get up. We don't have to move. And we don't even have to ride the buses if we don't want. We could boycott. Okay, but what happened was, I'll tell you what really happened in that situation. So she claimed the law of freedom. And by her claiming the law of freedom, it got back to Martin Luther King and some of the other people in town, who were they were talking about this stuff, but they were just ready for something to catalyze this movement, this civil rights movement. And when they heard about her getting arrested, they said, this is good stuff. This is she could become the poster girl. But you know what was wrong, by the way, when that happened and she got arrested? It was from her soul, So she just didn't move. But who was missing there was, who do you think was missing to make that work really well?
The camera.
Yeah, the media. Okay, so what they did is they reenacted it 2 weeks later. I just love that. They reenacted it. She went on the bus, she sat down, she didn't move, but this time the media were there. And then they started a major boycott of the buses. So I love that because it exemplifies how we can move the law of change, how we can use it and work with the law of change. Okay, but if we can't imagine how our world can be different because we're just stuck in it, we're just stuck in our roles and our daily routines, but we're not satisfied and we're not happy, but we can't imagine. We might have to move into a new kind of esoteric reality. Like what I'm talking about right now is exoteric, and that means on the earth plane for the masses. Don't get up on the bus, and here's how we construct these social institutions and stuff like that. But esoteric might mean mystical, like, wait, I don't know what to do. So one of the things that we can do is we can move into our own consciousness and go really deep into our own consciousness to try to find alternatives. And I think that was one of the things that happened when all of these tools of transformation began to flood our cultures, things like the tarot or the runes or the, any of these kinds of things that would take us inside ourselves to find deeper answers that we weren't contemplating. So I think that was part of what was going on with the proliferation of all of these things. And so what we can also transform our mind, our consciousness through means like this. It's like a magical change. And when we tap, this could be like maybe even spiritual ways of knowing. And what we find is that we can tap this larger universe, that the large self, by going deep within ourselves and becoming in tune with this universal flow, and then attending to how this moves us and how we might be different. And in that state, we can recognize and affirm our own power in new ways. And so here, the Magus would be intentionally stepping into this area and learning how to master different aspects of self and transform different aspects of self, such as 3 levels of the mind, which would be like the subconscious. It wouldn't start there probably, but waking consciousness and higher consciousness, and then transforming all those different areas. And the tree of life, for example, would be a tool that would guide us through transformation in a bunch of different areas within our own selves. It's like a step-by-step guide. And the Magus would work with, say, the 4 elemental forces: the fire, the water, the wind, the earth of the self, spirit, heart, mind, and body. And then the greater universe, or the ether, as they call it. And the whole idea would be to transform the baser metal of the self into the gold of the self, the soul, the gold. And that's basically the large I am. And then stepping into the power, stepping into the energy flow of moving into that power. We create the world with what we think into it. So if we want to create a different kind of world, we have to think something else into it. And entering into this mystical reality can create a flow of energy that can help us think differently. And then via that, we can change the flow of what's happening in the world by changing the flow of our own behavior, right? So that's a basic sociology, psychology, and awakening to these new levels of identity as the self, and then the larger self. The Magus is asking in the element of fire, spirit, basically what ignites me? What really ignites me? And in the realm of heart, which would be the realm of water, what do I love? What impassions me? And in the realm of air or wind, that's mind and consciousness. What really commands me? What draws my attention? Where do I want to put my consciousness? Where do I want to put my mind? And then in earth, it's how am I going to be in this world? What am I going to do? How am I going to be? Who am I going to be? And what am I going to do? And all of that is changeable.
What was spirit again, the question?
Spirit is consciousness. Where do I want to put my consciousness, my thoughts? What do I want to think about? See, because what we turn our attention to matters. What we turn our attention to is going to completely perform for us. If we turn on cartoons, they're going to completely perform for us. We can go completely inside of it. Or if we decide to read a book, we'll be completely immersed. Or if we decide to study a circle of ground with a 1-foot diameter and just look at it, it's going to start to perform for us. It's going to come alive. So whatever we pay attention to matters completely in determining who we are and what is important to us, and then how we're going to be in the world. The mode of empowerment of the Magus is called focused action. The Magus becomes a clear and calm actor and reactor. See, understanding all these things, this bigger picture, becomes a clear and calm actor and reactor. Through learning to trust the lessons of experience, reflecting on them, extracting the lessons, and paying attention. and then focusing thoughts and action. The astrological symbol of the Magus is Mercury. And Mercury is about the mind, it's about thought, and it's about idea, and it's about communication. Mercury, by the way, is also assigned to sphere number 8, which is all the 8s through the tarot. It's called Hod, and that is the sphere of the intellect and science, and most importantly, it's the sphere of symbolization. Because once we get these thoughts that we want to focus on, and then we get these thoughts, we can create our thoughts in the form of symbols. And symbols, we live in a symbolic universe. Symbols is what people respond to, what humans respond to. And by, in a certain sense, tossing symbols into the arena of human culture, we can actually change human culture through wielding symbols. Memes. And so logos, sound bites, all of these things have the power to completely transform culture. Packaging and then tossing them into, I call it lobbing fireballs. That's what I do. That's what I do with my time. I lob fireballs. My fireballs are fireballs of words, little packets of words, and I call it lobbing fireballs eastward. Whoosh, and then they're going to land in Kansas somewhere.
Go a little farther.
It could go, yeah. I call it eastward because if I go west, I'm in the ocean, and then they fizzle, right? So unless I could get them all the way to Japan. But the cool thing about the internet is we can really lob those fireballs. Okay, I don't want to get into that, but we can. Okay, so Mercury is about identifying and interacting with this greater cosmological intelligence, drawing down pieces of the greater cosmological intelligence. It comes through us, and then we are focusing, or rather our intelligence becomes the individual use of the cosmic intelligence passing through ourselves, and then we package it with regard to what we are paying attention to, what's important to us, and then how we're going to transform it and use it, and we can use it to create change in society. Okay. Symbols are really interesting because we, as I've said several times, we live in this symbolic universe, and symbols can actually transcend time and space. So we can toss a symbol out, and maybe in some kind of writing or art or something like that, but let's say it's a symbol of the moon. Okay, it may not be the moon that we're looking at right now, but somebody 500 years ago could write a poem about the moon, and I could understand what they're talking about because I know what a moon is. When I see that word MOON, and that word is a symbol for a thing that I see in the sky, the moon. Maybe they were thinking of it as full, but they don't mention it, and I'm thinking of it as a crescent, but it doesn't matter. We're still thinking about the same thing, So it transcends all time and all space. Once we package things in these symbols. And so there we go. So symbols codify and transform our universe. And the Magus, the most effective means of the Magus is going to be as a creator and user of symbols. That's in terms of the human realm. Okay, so drawing down the energies, maybe translating it into symbols, and then wielding those symbols on the human plane, right? The intelligence of the Magus is called the transparent intelligence, because the more powerful the Magus is going to be is as transparent as the Magus can become in linking to the external living universe. You might call it almost like a channel, becoming almost like a transparent channel. Okay, what is the deep reality I am living in here? It's this cosmos, this universal cosmos. Okay, how can I bring that through? And what part of that do I want to bring in? And then how do I want to employ that or use that? The esoteric title of the Magus is called bearer of the baton. And baton relates to, but a baton is a wand, and it relates to the fire, and it relates to spirit. And what the Magus is doing is like igniting or enlivening this spirit. He becomes the master of the tools, I should say he or she becomes the master of using the tools of spirit, heart, mind, and body, which are at the Magus's every command. When the Magus wakes up to the idea that he or she has the right to use those tools. This baton is like the driver of the energetic self. You know, the baton is what you use to do magic, to conduct orchestras, you know, and in the picture, the Magus is drawing down and in a figure eight pattern. And you can imagine the Magus holding a baton and drawing down and in. And what we see on the altar of the Magus is the wand or the baton, the cup, which represents water, and the sword, which represents the intellect and the keen intellect and consciousness, and the coin, which is the ability to manifest or change reality. So everything I'm talking about here has to do with manifestation and changing reality and just creating the world you want to live in. The word, the root, M-A-G, of Magus means to do or to make. And it's also the same root as magic, imagination, and even imago, which I just love. Imago is the fourth stage of transformation biologically. From we have the egg, the pupa, the larva, and then what finally emerges out of the cocoon is the winged being. And that winged being is called the imago, which I love. And the imago actually emerges out of the imaginal cells that are left after the meltdown, which actually that's good right here, because a lot of times before we go through the transformation to become the full-on Magus, we have to go through a meltdown. That's a liquefaction. But what's going to live through that meltdown is those things that are so critically important to us, that those are going to grow up into the winged being part of ourselves, the imago, the magician, the Magus, the one who wields the fire, water, air, and earth, and works with all that. So it is a state of real power. So I wanted to read you something from out of Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit. This is about the Magus. This is what we come to. You are cosmos, coming alive to its own being. You contain the endless energy and infinite substance that has been alive since the beginning. The energy and substance of the cosmos as you is passing through you. You yourself in this very moment stand poised before the altar with all the energies and substances flowing through you, with all the energies and substances necessary for creation laid out before you. You are the one, the Magus, poised to focus the intentions of the cosmos. You are living cosmos, creating the future in the present. You are the alchemical miracle of the universe. This is a pep talk. This is a pep talk. Okay, now, you know, this fabulous energy could also get reversed, right? So if you're doing a tarot reading and the Magus comes up reversed, what would you think of? I'm talking about the exalted stage of the Magus, but what would the unexalted Magus be? Just a couple of ideas. Anybody think of what the unexalted Magus could be?
Manipulation.
Yeah.
Controlling. Very controlling.
Yeah.
Or closed off to your own potential.
And closed off to your own potential. Yeah, and also could be an egomaniac, you know, who power hungry, who is not connected to the movements of the cosmos and what wants to happen, what what is good for the living cosmos. So it could get separated, and so what we want is we want to be the exalted Magus. Okay, the Magus also numerologically is connected with the number 10 and the number 19. And the reason for that is because 19, 1 and 9 is 10. And then 1 and 0 is 1. And the Magus is number 1. Okay, but those 3 cards would be...
But why 1 and 9? Why not 2 and 8?
Oh, okay.
Because that's still people's
Because I'm just talking about... Yes, you're right. But I'm talking about the tarot cards, and they only go up to 21. So the ones that connect to the Magus would be the number 19, which is the Sun, and the number 10, which is the Wheel of Fortune, and then the Magus. Okay, so in a sense, so first of all, it's like the Magus and the Fool are moving in and out of each other, because the Fool is all possibility, then it gets focused in the Magus, focused action. And then back into the Fool, back into the Magus. But you can almost look at these 3 cards, which would be the Magus, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Sun, almost like a reading, because what the Magus wants to do is learn how to stay centered and focused while everything's changing and moving and spinning. That's the number 10, the Wheel of Fortune. So the Magus wants to figure out how to stay centered while everything is happening and focused and become part of the instigator of whatever change wants to happen while staying very centered. And then the Sun is about spiritual realization. And if you remove the spiritualization part from the Magus, is where you're going to start to see these energies going awry. Because the spiritual realization part is about being part of the living cosmos and being part of this transparency and the transparency is really important. The Sun shines a light on everything, and we want to be able to shine a light on it. Actually, we don't want to live in a public and a private life where we have one part of ourselves that's in the public life and another part that's in a private life where we're split down the middle somehow. We really want to live a life of soul where we can be ourselves no matter where we are or who we're with. I mean, ultimately, that's what we really want, So this, by shining the light on it and being transparent in who we are, takes us more into a state of spiritual realization.
And you said we want to live a life of soul. I heard soul, S-O-L. The Spanish word for sun.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So, we want to live a life. We want to live a transparent life. We don't want to live a double life. That's not what we really want. That's not what I want. Anyway. Okay, so the Magus is wielding and combining and recombining the 4 elements into a creative process, or inside a creative process within the house of Baith, which would be the temple of the Magus, the body of the Magus, the mind of the Magus, the spirit of the Magus, the heart of the Magus, all within this one being, and then wielding these elements: fire, water, wind, and earth. And then just to look at the card symbology for a moment. So what we see on the card is we see the Magus wielding this huge figure 8, lemniscate. It is yellow, and yellow is for the color of enlightenment within the tarot. The Magus is wearing a black, red, and white. And the inner layer is white, and that is representing this transparency and connection with the cosmos. And the red is representing passion, and the black is representing the unknown and where we're headed and what's happening. And then on the altar, you see the cup, the blade, the sword, the wand, and the coin. And that's the ability to wield all those things. You see the glyph for Mercury on the card, and then also you see the Magus making these spirals with red and green. And this is the Magus's ability to actually break things down and start to look at their components to figure out how to separate them out and bring them back together. So that's all, bring them back together in new ways. So that is all contained in the card. To access the energies and powers of the Magus, they say focus on the musical note E, the musical tone E, which sets these energies off in your body. And the meditation colors for the Magus are yellow, purple, gray, and indigo rayed violet, primarily yellow. The mystery of the Magus is basically magic is a universal force traveling through the vehicle of our beings, of the being of the Magus. Magic is a universal force that travels through this vehicle. And I want to end with the meditation on the Magus from the Tarot of the Spirit. Okay, I'm going to find that. The meditation on the Magus from the Tarot of the Spirit. The divinatory meaning first. Know, will, dare, and keep silent. You possess and wield the tools of magical change. You are a visionary, but you don't necessarily have to express this to others. Just trust the lessons of your own experience. And you may be working, as they call it, silently within the law. And that's the big law. Okay, here's the meditation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Bait, the house of force, the temple of spirit, the house of personality. The Magus is the communication of Mercury, the bearer of the wand. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. The word of creation, whose speech is silence, truth and falsehood, wisdom and folly, shouting in the void. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Shining, luminescent with transparency, juggling wine, gold, frankincense, and fire in the mire of unknowingness, but willing, knowing, daring, touching. There is initiative, primal will, the primary mode of consciousness concealed behind all veils of name and form, building domes where none have been built before, drawing down the power to open the door of light and darkness. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That is a meditation on the Magus.